passion, focus, discipline. This is the Zero Excuses podcast. Each and every week, we talk to high-performing, inspirational athletes, entrepreneurs, and leaders. We ask powerful questions to extract their tools, strategies, and life lessons for you to crush your excuses, to break out of your comfort zone, and accomplish your ambitious dreams and goals. Here's your host, Kenyon Zitska.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks again for tuning in to today's interview. We have another awesome guest lined up for you guys. We have Mr. Dan Zehner, host of the Anthem of Adventure podcast. On that show, he shares his passion with the world about how you could still live a life of adventure even after you have a family, kids, a house, the mortgage, the student loans, all that stuff. He's big on not using his kids and his family as an excuse not to live a life of adventure. And before you kind of get wrapped around the axle on having these grand adventures, having adventure to him doesn't mean necessarily traveling halfway across the globe and going to some exotic location. You definitely want, as is always the case, grab a pen and paper because we go over some practical strategies on how you can have, every day be an adventure for yourself. And he also talks about how to stoke that inner child within us, that curiosity, that adventuresome spirit. And it goes way beyond just traveling, like I said, to exotic locations. But before we get into all that, really want to take a moment here to remind you guys to go over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review, and also to subscribe and share this with a friend or family member. Appreciate everyone who has done that. I think we're up to almost 65-star ratings. Obviously, if you don't feel that I warrant a 5-star rating, don't do that. Give me some open and honest feedback. I can take it. I got some thick skin. But, if you're getting value out of it, I would appreciate you just going over there and just take a moment to leave a quick review. My next reminder is if you want to take these topics, these discussions that we're having here on the show to the next level, would like to offer everyone an opportunity to connect with me on a free 30-minute strategy session. It's just my way of connecting with more people here in 2019. And as I've mentioned before, I'm retiring from the military. And one thing I'm going to miss is, mentoring people and seeing them take the tools that I give them and implement them so they can reach their goals. And, I know this sounds a little selfish, but, I want to make the biggest impact here. And I want to help people build the discipline and eliminate excuses so that they can live life on their terms, reach their goals, and have success in their life. So if you're interested in that, all you got to do is go over to kenyonzitska.com/call, and it'll take you right to my calendar, and you can schedule a 30-minute call with me. All right, guys, enough on all that. Let's get into today's topic of discussion with Dan. Dan Zehner, thank you for waking up at Dark 30 here to have a what I'm sure is going to be an epic conversation with me here on the Zero Excuses podcast. Cool to finally connect. I know we've kind of been high-fiving in the hallway here every now and again, but cool to finally connect.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. And hey, I'm up anyway, so this is a great way to start the day.
Hell yeah. Usually I'm in the gym, but this will be more of a mental gym exercise here, having this conversation. But I really love what your podcast is about and your mission and helping people live a life of adventure, eliminate the excuse of having kids, a mortgage, a house, all these responsibilities. We tend to put that on the back burner once we get married and start having kids. Most people, tend to quote unquote settle down. So did you I'm curious how you got the idea to start this podcast in the first place. Were you kind of struggling to live a life of adventure, or what was going on there?
Yeah. So we've got 3 kids. They're 5, almost 3, and 4 months. And before the third one came along, I was starting to get back into adventuring a little bit, and reread the book Wild at Heart by John Eldredge. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what this is all about. The part of the book where he talks about when he was starting his master's degree, he's like, normal people did call me crazy because we had 3 kids, we had a mortgage, I had a day job, what in the world am I doing? Jumping into getting a master's degree in counseling when he was, doing something completely different. But he's like, this is what the adventure to live is all about. It's doing things that God has called you to do, even though it may seem crazy to other people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's exactly it. That's what I've got to do. And I've got to show other guys that you can do that. And I actually got to talk to John on a video call. So we do this live Zoom call every month in this really great dads group that I'm in. It's called the Dad's Edge Alliance. I'm actually one of the team leads there. And got to talk to him in a live Q&A and ask him, I have this just like weight of this, like a better word, mission on my shoulders. I don't know what to do with it. Like, it's so big. Showing guys that you can live a life of adventure, even if you've got 3 kids, a mortgage, a day job, a wife. And he's like, he looked at me, he's like, that is awesome. I love that. You need to talk to God about that and ask him, what is your next step and who are your allies? Just simply that. Oh, yeah. Right. I totally missed that really important part. And so that night I prayed about it, I've been learning listening prayer. So he's got a really great book called Walking with God about actually how to pray in a listening way, like a conversation, ask, hey, what's up with this? Okay, I think I heard you say this. Is that right? And so I did that night, and I heard clearly podcast, and a bunch of guys' names came up of who to ask about being on the show. And I asked them the next day, and I got 12 guys booked for interviews in one day. Okay, I guess this is going to be a thing.
All signs are pointing to.
Yeah.
Cool. So before you were married and had kids, did you live a life of adventure? Was that something that was part of your soul even before starting a family and whatnot?
Yeah. So before we had kids, I had kind of a mixed life of adventure, I guess. I would go back and forth between really quote unquote adventurous things and then slipping into complacency. But growing up, grew up in Minnesota and Illinois, kind of split my childhood. But I was in the Boy Scouts. I got my Eagle Scout in high school, so I'd always been really into camping, hiking, fishing with my dad and with the guys in the scout troop and my family and things like that. I always loved building things. In college, I studied abroad in England, so got to actually spend 4 months in a foreign country, which was really cool, and had some really fun adventures over there. I actually played football on the college football team over there after meeting them at a Super Bowl party. They're like, hey, you're American, you must be good at football. I'm like,
yeah,
not really, but okay. So I always just kind of jumped these opportunities when they came. Yeah, and then I guess even just my first career out of college was a bit of an adventure. I really enjoyed the movie Hunt for Red October and the book when I was growing up, and everything about submarines just intrigued me. So I was like, yeah, I want to go build submarines for a living. And so I went out to I got a job at the shipyard at Electric Boat in Connecticut, which is
Groton, yeah,
half a country away from where I grew up, and took my new wife out there a week after we got back from our honeymoon and started a bit of an adventure out there. And when we first got married, we were just like, okay, we're in a new place, doing new jobs. Actually, she didn't have a job yet. She was looking for a job. And every day was an adventure. We're like, we don't know anything about anything out here. We're just going to drive down the street and see what's there.
Yeah.
And so kind of exploring Connecticut and what was there. We'd never been out to New England. I went out there once to look for an apartment, and that was it.
Yeah. So what has, what has all this adventuring done for you? I know I'm getting ready to retire out of the Navy after 22 years. There's a bunch of adventures.
Man.
Yeah, thank you. But, all this adventure gives you more perspectives. And I contrast myself to someone who hasn't even left their home state. Not to like come across as judgy or, putting anybody down, but I just feel like, the types of problems that register on my radar are definitely much different than the types of problems that register on those people who don't quite have those perspectives radars. Is that something that's that adventuring has done for you as well?
Yeah, a few things it's done for me. One is like just the sheer amount of variety that there is to life.
Yeah.
We have no excuse to be bored, but also boredom is a good thing. Like just going out and sitting in the woods and not having any agenda can be an adventure.
Yeah.
But also I found like what I thought were my limits are not even close. Like I'm wearing this shirt. This is from the Mogadishu Mile Go Ruck Challenge, which I did in 2015, and it beat the hell out of me.
Yeah.
I still remember. So I did the one up in Chicago. I remember it was 3 a.m. ish. I mean, we didn't have a watch, so I didn't really know. But it was 0 dark 30 before 0 dark 30, and we were in a little park in Chicago, and it was starting to drizzle. It was 40 something degrees out, and we were just getting smoked in a PT evolution. I was holding my 40-pound ruck over my head, and we were doing flutter kicks, and I could barely hold it up. I remember, I don't know if I yelled it out or if I just said it out loud, like, I can't. And somebody in front of me said, F yes, you can. Don't you effing quit on me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And just kept going and going. And then we got put into Lake Michigan when it was 50 degrees out. And,
Lovely times.
Yeah, it's like we got through it. I'm like, oh, I wouldn't say that wasn't so bad, but it's like I had so much more in my tank than I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Go Ruck events as well, and I throw my ruck on every day, so I can appreciate what that perspective that provides. Is what, if I can get through this, there's nothing I can't get through, and just it really proves that you can handle a lot more than you lead yourself on to believe. So
yeah, and it's really cool because, like, I mean, every day I put my 30-pound steel plate in my pack, and people look at me like I'm nuts. But like, hey, this is how I lost 60 pounds, and I keep it off by going rucking every day. And I don't, if I miss a day or a week or whatever at the gym, I'm not gonna worry about it too much because every day I'm rucking around the campus for a couple of miles and, maybe listening to some David Goggins on an audiobook like I am this week.
Yeah.
And, leveling up, getting some adventure, getting outside. Doesn't matter what the weather is. I don't care.
Yep. Yeah, that's the beauty of it. You can take it anywhere. Over Christmas holiday, I live in Charleston, but most of my family's up in upstate New York. That I don't have a gym membership up there, but you know what? I got a 30-pound pack. I brought my sandbag too, and it's a portable gym. There's no excuses there. But
you can do a whole lot with a 30-pound ruck and a sandbag full of pea gravel.
Yeah, and that's an adventure all on itself too. I mean, I really think that approaching more everyday situations with a sense of adventure, a sense of exploring new ways of looking at things, new experiences. How can I experience this a little bit differently than I did the other day? Just opens your mind up to so many more possibilities. And, it breaks up the boring, mundane tasks that we find ourselves, caught up in every single day. If we can, take a step back and be a little more present in the moment. I know this sounds a little woo-woo, a little, pie in the sky type type attitude. But you know what? That sense of adventure, like having that playfulness, that childlike playfulness with more situations, life isn't that serious. And I think what you're doing is is so very important. We can, we tend to get caught up in these political arguments. We got whatever the issue of the day is. If we could just take a step back and have a little more playful attitude, I think we'll be a lot better off as a society.
Oh, yeah. I think along with that, like a part of my adventure has also been in study, and studying, the great philosophers of history. I've been reading the Daily Stoic every day for about a year and a half now.
Yeah.
And just like the freedom that comes with that applying Stoic philosophy in a kind of adventurous way is like, I don't even have to care about things that I can't directly control or influence. So, whatever, our president or any politician or polarizing figure or Insta famous model who's what's her face, whatever they're doing, I don't even need to listen to because I can't control it. I can't influence it. It literally does not matter to me. If somebody starts talking about it, it's like, that's great, but I don't know who that is.
Yeah. Yeah, I find myself doing the exact same thing. But let's maybe start unpacking the point in time in your life when you got married, started having kids. When you kind of were concentrating on that, did you kind of feel like a disconnection, like something was out of alignment once you started concentrating on that? Maybe tempering that adventure side of you? Was that the?
Yeah, I definitely didn't have once we started having kids, so our son came along when we were still living out in Connecticut, and we made the decision to move to Indiana to be close to our family. They're over in Illinois. And so that was kind of it was a really big change. And it was great for our family. I mean, no doubt, now that we're, here and we're part of our community, we love it. But when I first got here, it was like, okay, now we're settling. Now we're trying to just get comfortable and build a family. And that kind of hurt. No, it didn't kind of hurt isn't the right word. It really hurt, actually.
Yeah.
To give up what I thought was my dream job. And, every weekend we could go to Boston or New York, or we could go to the Adirondacks or go to a bunch of food festivals all over the place and all this culture and history and mountains and, going skiing in Vermont. Couldn't do any of that anymore. And I kind of felt like, well, I guess for now it's just work and raising a family, and that's it. And then I slowly started finding ways to bring some variety back into life. I've been woodworking since we have had a house, and started building things, and actually started a side business building furniture out of broken hockey sticks.
Nice.
After about 9 months living here, somebody found some of my stuff online and ordered it was hilarious. So when we first moved here, I got a job as a manufacturing engineer at Subaru, and thought that was going to be my second dream job, and quickly found out that it was way too many hours for somebody who actually wanted to see their family.
Yeah.
So near the end of that, I got an email from a guy. It was probably my last week of working at Subaru, and I was having a pretty rough day. And he's like, "Hey, I saw your broken hockey stick bench online. It was really cool. Want to order a couple more?" Great. So I give him my phone number. We talked that night. Come to find out, he's a marketing agent for Rogers, which is like the AT&T of Canada.
Yep.
And he's like, "Well, we're putting together the Rogers Hometown Hockey Tour, 25 city tour with a big broadcast truck and festival, and we want to give one of your benches away at each stop." Like,
wow, that's pretty out there. Yeah.
So he's like, I'm like, "When do you need these?" It's like, "Yeah, we need 10 by October 1st. This is August." It's like, gosh, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
So
Say yes and figure it out later.
Yeah. So, right. So I'm like, I'm a manufacturing engineer. I can figure this out. And so that was like, aha, all right, now I found my thing to, get that spark of adventure again. I didn't really put those words to it at the time, but that's what it was. It was something I was looking for to really sink my teeth into, and just like, all right, we're jumping out of the back of the plane, we're building our parachute as we go.
Yep.
And I got on Etsy that night after talking to my wife. I'm like, hey, we just made, $18,000. And then I found this guy who is selling broken hockey sticks in bulk, and he's up in Chicago. We arranged a meeting in middle of nowhere, Illinois, and like had the weirdest bank heist look. Like we met in a bank parking lot, and he's like, we're shoving hockey sticks from his black pickup truck into my black Subaru. So, and if anybody ever asks you at bar trivia night how many hockey sticks fit in the Subaru, it's 550, because we could not fit any more in there.
Jeez. Wow.
And over the next few months, I got family to help, clean everything. And then I had my assembly line, and, started cutting the stick shafts down and putting the plywood panels together and finishing those, and, shipped them up to Canada, figured out how to do freight shipping. And ended up, as the project was going along, like, I got to go to one of these festivals. This is way too good of an opportunity to miss. So I made a hockey jersey with my new company logo on it, name on the back, everything, and went up to near Niagara Falls to St. Catharines, Ontario.
Yep, that's my stomping grounds, by the way.
Oh man, it was beautiful up there. It's one of my favorite places I've ever been now. It's just, people were lovely. The area was amazing. The festival was really cool. I didn't sell any more benches while I was up there, but it was just really fun. And I was like, man, this is cool. It didn't end up turning into anything after the project was done. But stuff like that kind of kept cropping up. And I kept looking for opportunities like that to just do something different, to make something happen. And it all really came to a head after our second child was born, and I was kind of in a slump. I had just gotten laid off from my job that I got after Subaru, and started a new job over at Purdue, it was going well, but I was kind of like waiting for the other shoe to drop, kind of thing. Like I had just been real beaten up, and we were not sleeping a whole lot. My wife and I weren't connecting very well. It's like, man, I'm just not really doing that great, and not feeling very good about who I am and what I'm about and how well I'm showing up. And so I heard this podcast, The Good Dad Project, now it's called The Dad Edge.
Yep.
And Larry Atch, the Navy SEAL that we introduced you to, was on there. And I heard him talking about instilling a growth mindset in your kids, and how to, specifically, he was talking about his son Colt, who was same age as my son Alex, and how he helped him get over his fear of the dark. I'm like, oh, really? And so he offered this program at the end of the show, and I jumped in full force and started realizing, like, oh, I can set he calls it a desired end state. So the environment that you want to create once you're successful at something. I can set a desired end state for any area of life I want, and set a plan to actually go do it. So if I set desired end state for an adventurous life and just reflect on that every day, I'm gonna make it happen. And so I started doing that in all the areas of life that mattered. I started out with my health. I hired a coach, started getting in the gym. I set my sights on actually meeting the standards of the Navy SEAL PT test, which I did after a few months. And that was cool, because more power to you and your Navy brothers. I'm never going to be in the Navy, but it's like, it was cool to feel like I could if I had wanted to, and to know, like, all right, this is all the effort they put in there, and this is what it feels like to be, at least physically able to get into that arena. And that was pretty cool. It's like, oh, I want some more of this. I got to do this in other ways. And so I just began kind of looking for opportunities everywhere to do things differently. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how the ball got rolling. And it's funny, I was wearing this shirt in a picture when I was probably that week when I heard that podcast, and I really did not look great. Like, I had this kind of blank stare on my face of like, get me out of here. And then 2 years later, over the summer, I actually got to go down to Florida to meet Larry and Ann. I was on a work trip. This is how I do things now. It's like I'm on a trip for my day job, and I'm finding ways to do adventures while I'm there. I don't stay in hotels anymore. I stay in Airbnbs that are interesting. Like, I'll stay in a teepee in the back of somebody's backyard in San Diego when I go out there for work. Or when I was in Miami for this trip in Florida, I stayed in a treehouse.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Like, it's cheaper and it's more fun. Like, what the heck? Yeah. So I'm driving between Gainesville and Miami and meeting up with Larry and Ann in Boca. And I'm listening to Men in Green Faces on the way, the audiobook about Navy SEALs in Vietnam. And meet up with Larry and Ann, have a great day together. And after dinner, he's like, hey, you want to go diving? Look for some lobster? I'm like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
You know, it's a normal Wednesday. Of course I'm going to go diving at night with a Navy SEAL. That's just who I am now.
Yeah. It's a great time.
So that's kind of how things have gone the past couple of years, is just like looking for those opportunities wherever they are and preparing myself ahead of time, physically and mentally, to be able to take advantage of those.
Yeah. So let's start diving into maybe some of the practical ways that you, I guess, through your podcast, let's start breaking down some tools and strategies that maybe people can employ to maybe get them out of, up from bottom dead center and start, living a life of adventure here. What are some of those practical tools that you kind of universally suggest to people?
Yeah, one of the things I really love about doing my show is that I ask explicitly for a challenge from every guest. Like, what is something we can do this next week to incorporate some adventure? So you've got 33 of those challenges you can go do. And some of my favorites are John Eldridge's, of course. His was, put your phone down, leave it in the car, get outside and do something where there is a non-zero chance of injury.
Yes. Yeah.
Do something a little dangerous. I was like, oh, I love that. So what I did with that one, and I will be perfectly honest, the past couple of months, I've kind of gotten into a little bit of a drift where, the podcast production kind of took a back seat because we had a new baby and I'm getting back into it, and getting back into doing the challenges. So this is a really good reminder, like, go back to all those old challenges and start posting about them and start posting about what I'm doing with them.
Yeah.
But the one that I did with John, I found this little single track mountain bike trail here in town. It's just nestled in behind an art museum into a hill. And it is really challenging for a guy like me who doesn't mountain bike all that often. And I'm whizzing by these little trees, well, not little trees, big trees, on a little trail, jumping over rocks, clambering over things, and getting cut up a little bit from branches. And just, I get into this state of flow. I don't know if your audience is familiar with that, but just that, like, almost tunnel vision where nothing else seems to matter and you're just singularly focused on what you're doing and feeling really alive. And I get out of that trail and I'm feeling pretty good, and there's about a 3-inch gap between the trail and the parking lot, and I try and jump it, hit it full force, and face plant. And I get up and I just got this big, stupid grin on my face. And it's like, it took less than an hour. I didn't have to leave my backyard, basically. And I felt the rush of a lifetime.
Yeah. Oh man, that's what you said right there is really important, because, and I want to highlight this because, we think of adventure, we got to make these grand plans to, head out to the Grand Canyon or fly somewhere to go to this exotic place. But we don't have to look very far to
No.
find opportunities.
And don't get me wrong, there's definitely a place and time for that.
Oh, yeah.
I really love how John puts it. These kind of casual, everyday adventures you use to build the skills for the critical adventures that you do maybe once or twice a year. Like the Go Ruck Challenge is a perfect one. Do one of those once or twice a year to really shock your system. You need something once or twice a year to really just get you out there, challenge you more. And then he calls it the crucial adventures, the once every 5 to 10 year trip that's really going to stretch you. I'm doing one of those this summer with my wife and our baby. We're leaving the other 2 kids with grandma and grandpa. Thank you, mom and dad. If you listen to this, we're going to Normandy for D-Day. We're going there and we're spending a week in France. Neither of us have been over there. Neither of us speak French. And I'm going to do the Go Ruck Challenge on Omaha Beach on June 5th.
Nice.
And not only that, but I'm designing our team weight, which 12 people are going to be able to hold, or no, 10 of us are going to be able to. It is a 12-foot long scale replica of a Higgins boat, a landing craft.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's going to be crazy. But I'm not doing that every day, but
right.
It's an opportunity that we've been building up. We've been building our mental, our physical, our financial, resources to be able to just say, hey, this opportunity came up. You want to do it? Yeah, let's go. And we're just now diving. Actually, I got to show you this. This is cool. So our planning process for this, I found this planner. This is one of the things I really like too, is being able to build the hype for adventures in any way you can. This thing is awesome. And it's, really nicely built. It's got a so this is called the Adventure Assist for people who are not watching this. I don't know if you're recording video. But it's got a little place to put your passports and documents and stuff. It's got a section for contacts and a calendar and, your accommodations and planning out what you're going to do, transportation, packing list. We've got a to-do list for like different parts of Paris and Omaha Beach and things we could do and activities. And so we don't have to necessarily plan out every detail of every day, or if something like goes wrong or weather happens, we'll have alternatives for things to do. We'll just have a list of, hey, here's all the stuff we could do in this area. Let's pick one for today.
Yeah.
And so we're building the mindset. We're building our alternatives, as we're planning. And so, anyway, getting back to it, like doing things every day is really important, but it's also important to like be able to take those opportunities to do something big every now and then.
Yeah. Have you ever taken some of these things to an excess, I guess? Have you found an upper limit for employing these things? Because I can imagine my gears are definitely turning, listen to what you're saying here. I can imagine that a lot of the guests or the audience members who might be listening to this might maybe run out there and all of a sudden decide to make a big change. Have you kind of hit an upper limit or gone past that upper limit with applying some of these things that you learned about over your life?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say, I don't know that I've found it yet, but I've come up against, like sometimes obviously you got to take care of your responsibilities, at your job, with your kids, with your wife. So sometimes like I will go find myself, I'm doing, do a SEAL Fit workout at the gym as part of an adventure and spend frankly too much time away from work and kind of dig myself into a hole. But, I've built the mindset and thankfully the relational capital with my coworkers where if I fall behind, I can catch back up pretty quick.
Yeah.
And they kind of know what I'm on about and are all about it. So it's that's the only limit I've come up against so far and thankfully I've got a kind of flexible career to where that's okay to do every now and then.
Yeah.
But I haven't really found a limit yet, and I haven't really pushed it. That's the thing, is I've kind of been doing this still mostly in my comfort zone, which is kind of a freaky thing to think about.
Right. But it seems like you've been pushing the size of that comfort zone bigger and bigger and bigger for yourself. So I think that's the most important piece there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a real kind of cautious type. It's funny, I'll do all these seemingly crazy things, but I'm pretty risk averse. I'm like, I kind of liken it to, somebody in the military, right? You're not going to stick your head out in a kind of dangerous neighborhood in a bad part of the world without a whole lot of preparation beforehand, right?
Right.
It's still a risky thing to do. It's still a good thing to do, but you're not going to just do it on a whim and dance out in the streets of Mogadishu just because you can.
Right.
You're gonna bring a team. You're gonna bring some preparation and training. You're gonna bring some equipment, and you're going to do things in a very measured way. So that's kind of how I do things, pushing the envelope into new territory.
Right on. You keep mentioning mindset. What words of advice do you have with regard to that and building a strong mindset so that you can actually, I think that's where it starts to, live a life of adventures mindset. We got to change our minds. We got to kind of look inside of ourselves. I guess can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. Your mindset is what drives your decisions. It's your filter for life. And so it's made up of your I have some distinctions for this. We'll have to come back to this later when I actually have some notes. But how I look at it is thinking about the information that I study, things I pay attention to, my environment and my mood are really big. So, for example, this coffee cup here, right? This is actually a very intentional purchase because it evokes a mood of, like, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of hygge. It's a like Danish thing. It's basically how they're like warm, cozy, and happy all year round.
Yeah.
But it looks like a sweater, and I've got my favorite coffee in here, and it gets me into a mood of calm, cozy, comfort, minimalism that I really like to have around the house. When I'm out, rucking, I've got my favorite, playlist for getting into an adventurous kind of conquering the world mood, or I'll listen to audiobooks like David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me while I'm rucking around to like build my armored mind while I'm rucking around. That for me is so important. Of any situation I get into is like, okay, what mood do I need to be in to be most effective here? And how can I influence my environment to get into that mood? If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
It amplifies everything.
Yeah, if you notice over my shoulder here, this is my home base here where I sit and plan and do the podcast. And this is a list of affirmations that get me in the mood. Like when I sit down and plan out my days, like I just read out these things to prime my mind, because sometimes I may not feel like sitting down and planning out my days and weeks. But once I read this, I still may not feel like doing it, but I've reminded myself why it's important that I sit there and do it. So definitely priming your mind with positivity will definitely not leave much room for the negative to seep its way into your mind. So definitely understand what you're saying.
That is huge, and building that habit of resilience when those negative thoughts do come, having a mental process and kind of a checklist of like when you do get in that negative thought spiral, get yourself out of it. Like, okay, here is what I'm feeling. Am I really feeling this right now? Do I want to keep this frame of mind? Is this serving me? How am I going to get through this? For me, it's always a question of who do I need to contact to get myself out of this?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a very relational person. So it's always like, all right, who do I need to call to just give me a kick in the teeth right now to get out of this?
What would David Goggins say right now? Type deal, right?
Yeah, exactly. So one of another great Navy SEAL who unfortunately has made some poor choices in life, and since writing his book Resilience by Eric Greitens, is a fantastic book to study. That really helped level up my mindset quite a bit. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, another good one. I mean, anything Jocko writes could be gold, but those kind of things, studying those kind of books, and also just like reading stuff for fun to inspire you. Like, I've been reading a lot of books about D-Day lately. Just got through reading The Band of Brothers and listening to Dick Winter's memoirs, and now I'm reading the really big, thick D-Day book by Stephen Ambrose, and it's just really inspiring. And like these stories of battle and adventure just really get your mind right, and that helps quite a bit.
For sure, man. Yeah. And, I've been trying to put some more variety into my reading habits. I've been concentrating on those personal development books, but I think this year what I want to do is, throw a fiction or more of a historical story type book into the mix every now and again, just to liven up my reading adventures as well.
Yeah. I think that's really important too, because we only have so many hours of the day. We only have so many hours for study. Study is important, but paying attention to what we study and why. A really great friend of mine, Tuan Nguyen, put out this idea that you really should target your study for just-in-time learning. So the books you're reading should be like, hey, what do I need to help me get further towards my desired end states this week? So I'm going to read those things instead of just reading something to read it. But then interspersing some fiction in there for inspiration and fun, or even historical things. Like another really good one that I like is what the heck is it called? It's a book about Teddy Roosevelt and his expedition to the River of Doubt. I think it's called The River of Doubt. I'll have to look it up. It's just fascinating about that expedition that almost killed him.
Awesome, man. Well, I think we're starting to bump up against time. I think our kids are starting to stir, and this is good. This has been an epic conversation, and I love this is an adventure right here, going into a little uncharted territory, having two guests on here at once on the podcast here. But it's like I said, this has been a great conversation, and I love the attitude that you're bringing. I love, you and I are very similar. We're both engineers, both into GoRuck and making an impact in the world. So I appreciate how you show up. You have any, actually, before we let you go, how can people get in touch with you? What is the name of your podcast? And maybe talk about that real quick.
Yeah, so podcast, it's called The Anthem of the Adventurer. You can find me on Facebook, shoot me a message, or anthemoftheadventurer.com. You can subscribe to it on your favorite podcast app. And especially if you find one of the challenges from the episodes, shoot me a message or post in our group, which is the Anthem of the Adventurer Tribe. Just really love to see how people are incorporating that.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again. I'll definitely put links into everything that you mentioned here into the show notes. And man, I'm looking forward to releasing this content. Thanks again for waking up early with me and getting this done.
Good to be here with you, man. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Yep.
Thank you for tuning in to the Zero Excuses podcast. Join the conversation at KenyonZitska.com in our Facebook group. And don't forget to rate and subscribe to our show. We'll talk to you next week. And always remember, results, not excuses.